Hello everybody, we are here with your Morrigan guide. A lot of people wondered why Morrigan wasn't played in our god guide, and that is because her name is not Morrigan, her name is the Morrigan. For whatever reason, lore-wise, she is the Morrigan, so her name does actually start with A-T and not A-M, so that is why she is getting done now. So for our build, we're going to grab ourselves a Mage's Blessing. We'll be playing Morrigan in the mid lane. That is the lane that she is best in. Every once in a while, she'll pop up somewhere else. You'll see somebody get fancy and take her into the jungle, or even into the ADC role if you need some magic damage and there's like nothing left up, like Oleron and stuff are banned out. But for the most part, she is a mid laner most of all. So we'll be grabbing our tier 1, going into our Doom Orb, Chronos Pendant, all that good stuff, couple of health pots, and our mana pot. Morrigan does have an auto chain. Her auto chain is she goes 1, 2, and then her third auto is a big beefy auto. Her third hit explodes and it does AoE damage and a little bleed on the target. This is a part of her passive. The third hit of her chain explodes, dealing damage to all enemies in range, dooming all enemies on hit. Doomed enemies take additional basic damage attack over time. So it does 9% of the target's HP over a period of 3 seconds. Yeah, that is a lot of damage. You're right. It is a very good passive. It's literally 9% max HP as a passive. How cool is that? And it allows you to get a lot of very early first bloods on Morrigan. Another reason why Morrigan can be so aggressive is because she has extraordinarily good lane clear with her second ability, which is what we grabbed at level 1. That ability is our Dark Omen, and it is the ability that we are going to max out first on Morrigan. This ability goes through all minions, all gods, all targets. It is a long line-based ability. It is going to hit the target, and it is going to do some damage to them. If it is a minion, it is going to do bonus damage to them. So you've got initial damage, plus you got bonus damage that you're going to get when you proc this. So how this ability works is it's got a one-time hit. It's got a one-time hit that you do, and then it leaves an omen on enemy gods. Enemy gods will take bonus damage the next time they're hit by a damaging ability. So this initial damage and this minion bonus damage is going to proc right away for your minions. But when you use it on an enemy god, you're going to get the initial damage. And then you have to wait for the god bonus damage. That god bonus damage procs if they get hit within the next 8 seconds by another damaging ability. Now, keep in mind, this does not have to be your damaging ability, which is very important. So if I throw a 2 on somebody and then Hunbats hits them with his 2, that'll proc it and do the extra damage for me. Then at level 2, we got Hour 1. Hour 1 has a small build-up animation. This is actually important. You make a sound when you press this ability, and you also have to play through this animation at the start. Takes about half a second before the ability is actually usable. Then after that, you will get a small cone-based targeter in front of you. That small cone-based targeter has another little build-up to actually land the attack. And then when you do it, you're going to do damage to everybody within the area, and you are going to stun them for 1 second. Oftentimes, this is the ability that you're using to proc your 2 bonus damage on gods. Then we got ourselves Hour 3. Hour 3 is what lets Morrigan be so sneaky. This is a stealthing ability. When we press R3, we are going to leave out a decoy that is going to run in the direction that we are facing. We are going to go into stealth for 4 to 6 seconds, depending on how long or how much points we have in this ability. And we are going to gain bonus movement speed 30 to 40%, depending on how many points we have in this ability. That Morrigan decoy will die the second it is touched by anybody. If you are hit while you are in stealth, you will immediately come out of stealth. This is not like Loki, where you can just kind of sit there and get bopped and still be in stealth. If you get hit in stealth at all, you're coming right on out. It's basically a waste of the ability. Finally, we have our ultimate. What makes Morrigan really unique compared to everybody else, and also what has made her one of the buggiest gods in the history of Smite. I would say she's the buggiest god of all time in Smite. Maybe not right now. Maybe Buggy Yaga has her beat by just a little bit right now. But from a historical context, nobody has had the plethora of problems that Morrigan has had. And that is because her ultimate lets her turn into anybody in the game. Anybody that is in your current match, you're going to have this pinwheel, and you will be able to turn into them. You turn into that character, and you have their exact build. So a couple of things that we should note about this. You do not turn into that opponent's level. You stay the same level that you are. You do not gain their actives or anything of that sort. You keep your own actives. And you do not change your level ability order. So while an enemy god might be leveling their abilities in a different order, you do not get the level order that they're leveling. You get the level order that you're leveling on that god. So what I mean by that is I've leveled up my 2 here to max. So if I were to turn into Scylla, the ability that I would have ranked up is her second ability, which is Crush. So you do have to keep this in mind for the earlier stages of the game for what target you want to turn into. At level 20, it doesn't matter because all your abilities are ranked up. Who cares? But at this stage of the game, I might not want to turn myself into a character who has a bad ability that I'm leveling. Because I'm standardly going to be leveling my 2 first. This is my lane clear. I want to be turning into a god that's got a good second ability. So turning into Hades does me pretty much no good unless I'm just trying to use his ulti for the CC, because that means I've leveled up my fear on Hades instead of my 3 devour souls. I don't want to rank up my fear first. That's silly. But it does mean that somebody like a Scylla is a good target, because that's a Crush ranked up. Nemesis is great. That's a slice and dice. And her, it's Impale. All good abilities that have ranked up. This also means that Morrigan can be one of the hardest gods in the game to use her ultimate correctly on, because you need to know everybody else's kit. Not only do you need to know how to play them generically, you need to know what abilities they have in what slots, so that way you know who to turn into. She can be quite complicated as far as her ultimate goes. The rest of her kit, her 1, her 2, and her 3, not super complicated. The part that makes her difficult is the fact that she can literally turn into every single other character in the game. So in order to maximize her efficacy, you kind of need to know how to play most gods in the game. On our build, we have gone right into a Chronos Pendant, Mage's Blessing, CDR Boots, and Chronos Pendant. Morrigan's ultimate is a ridiculously long time until you get it all the way leveled up, but it's really, really good. So you want to get your CDR online ASAP. Really, you have 2 options here. I'm going to be going into Doom Orb next. You can either get your Doom Orb first and then a Chronos Pendant second. That's fine. Or you can get the Chronos Pendant first and then the Doom Orb. Either way, kind of depends on the match, how you're feeling, how aggressive you can be, how much gold you have exactly when you're back. There's a lot of options there, but between those 2 is where you're going to be putting your points. I'm going to wait right here. Just try to see maybe if somebody comes over this way. There is a Morrigan here. There's a Scylla here. She's just going to dash out. So keep in mind on Morrigan, when you're in your 3, I'm in stealth, right? That's all great and grand. But if I press my 1 while I'm in stealth, that giant sound effect plays. The enemy will know where you are in stealth if you play that 1 too close to them. So if you want to use your stun coming straight out of stealth, what you need to do is you need to press your stealth and then your 1 basically right away. So that way you can have your stun charged up and ready without making that sound effect up near the gods that are going to be able to hear you. You have to be very tricky with that ability in order to get a lot of efficacy out of it. I'm going to come over towards this Nem. I'm going to use my stealth to get over here through any wards they might have. I'm going to get pulled out by Kepri. That's actually okay. I'm going to get my auto attacks down here. I'm going to get my stun out, pop my beads, and I'm going to turn into Anher so I can go ahead and ulti the Anher. I'm going to wait for him to come back out, hit him with that double impale. Nem is still on me. That's fine. I'm going to start my jump away as my ulti is about to run out. Your ultimate time lasts for 10 seconds on Morrigan, so you'll have 10 seconds as the opposing god. There are two things you should know about this. One, at the bottom of your feet, there's going to be a little circle. That little circle is indicative of how much time you have left on your ulti, so how long you're going to be in that transform. So keep an eye on that. In two, you cannot deform while you're in the middle of channeling an ability. So you can actually make this last slightly longer than 10 seconds. Let's go back to Anher. Let's say I'm in Anher form. I've been as playing as Anher for 9 seconds, and I'm about to transform back. If I pop his ultimate right as I'm about to transform, I'm actually gonna channel the full ultimate and get it all off, which might last for, let's say, 2 seconds, thus keeping me in Morrigan ult for actually 11 seconds as Anher. So as long as you're channeling something, you won't deform out of it. If you're not channeling something, it'll kick you right out after that 10-second marker.
Fade into the shadows.
Your left tower is under attack.
On Morrigan, the two most important things for us is, as you can imagine, cooldown, because we've gotten it first, and also movement speed. Movement speed is a really important part of Morrigan's kit because a lot of her damage will actually come from your one, which is a melee-based ability. So you really need to be able to travel far, press your 3 to get in stealth, and then run a good distance in order to make sure that you're getting the most out of that ultimate. Or excuse me, in order to make sure that you're getting the most out of her kit in order to land the one. The one can be very difficult to get in range of unless you have some bonus movement speed. So Doom Orb is gonna be a go-to item no matter where you're playing Morrigan. You clear a wave, you get a bunch of bonus movement speed on top of the fact that Doom Orb is already giving you movement speed. Fan-flippin-tastic.
I'm returning to base.
Hollow stealth deploy.
On Morrigan's ultimate, this is gonna sound a little contradictory, but it's true. There's two main mistakes that people make with Morrigan ult. One of them is that they never, ever, ever change the target. At certain points in the game, certain characters might be better than others, and so you might need to change that target around. The other mistake that people make is feeling like they have to switch Morrigan targets. And I know these sound kind of contradictory, but I promise they're not. Sometimes it is advisable to switch your targets to be into a better character, but that is not necessarily true all the time. If they've got a really, really big, let's say Scylla this game, let's say she was huge, had a 4,000 gold lead on me, so she's got a bunch of items, she's hitting super hard, it might just be the objectively correct decision to turn into Scylla every single time because he's so big. And reminder, we're gonna get his items that he has. So in that regard, we're actually putting ourselves in a better position going into the higher level character. There's nothing wrong with just booing Scylla, 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 because she's crushing it on their team. But on the other hand, you don't want to get into a situation where you're like, I'm really comfortable, let's just say Anher, because I've turned into him twice. I'm really comfortable on Anher. I don't want to turn into anybody else because I'm not comfortable on that character. That's not necessarily a situation that you want to get yourself into. So you have to keep both in mind. And it's just going to depend on the game that you're in. Just gonna be a little bit dependent. You're gonna have to make up that decision for yourself. Just keep both of those in mind. Now we can finish up our Doom Orb. I'm gonna get myself into a Polynomicon.
To the vanguard.
Polynomicon is not a great item. It is an okay item, situationally, on some gods. Morrigan is one of the only gods, if not the only god in the game right now, that I would buy Polynomicon on 100% of the time. The reason why you buy Polynomicon on Morrigan 100% of the time is it simply comes down to your combo that you're going to be using. Your standard combo that you're going to be using on Morrigan is going to be one of the following. That is going to be 2 into your 1 and an auto attack. Or it is going to be your 1 into an auto attack into your 2. Those are going to be the 2 standard combos. So you're either doing 2, I'm going to see if I can get a discovery. 2 into your ultimate, and then your auto attack with Poly, or the other way around. You're going to be using your 1 first. Typically when you're coming from stealth, you're going to use your 1 right into the auto attack, and then your 2, hoping that the 1 auto 2 combo fully kills them. Now, keep in mind, if you do the 1 auto 2 strategy, that will leave that Omen proc on somebody unprocced, right? So it's technically not maximized damage, but it is going to be your most guaranteed full damage combo, because what's going to happen if you try to maximize your damage perfectly and you come out of stealth, you do your 2, then you auto attack, then you go for your 1. That's a lot of time for the enemy to react and use a movement speed ability to get away from you, to pop an Aegis, to do all sorts of things. So chances are you're actually going to miss the damage on your 1. So the only way to actually guarantee the damage from your combo is to go 1, boom, auto 2. That's going to get that guaranteed damage off every single time. Even if they beads your stun, you can still land the auto attack and the 2. Vice versa, if you do it the other way, well, you can't stop them from Aegising your 1 damage. You can't stop Nemesis from dashing away, all that kind of stuff. So while it does do more damage, it is the riskier play.
You're on fire!
When using Morrigan stealth, a quick little helpful tip is to actually stealth the decoy in the direction that you're not running. Reminder that Morrigan decoy, let's watch it, will run out straight in the direction that you choose. So you can accidentally give away your location on Morrigan. If you try to, let's say I want to go gank the solo lane, so I'm running over to the solo lane, and I'm like, okay, I want to get in stealth, so I stealth and I go like this. Well, that decoy might literally just like walk over a ward and give away your location. So a better strategy with the decoy in general is to just use the decoy in a different direction than you're planning on going. So if I wanted to go gank the middle lane right now in stealth, just quickly turn around, hit that stealth button, so that way it runs out back towards the fire giant. So now I'm here in the middle lane and nobody knows. Gonna let me get over those wards and actually utilize my stealth
Enemy ultimate down.
without being seen. Full party coming over to the left lane. Do, 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 do. Gotta be a little sneaky. In the early game, I like to transform almost always into damage characters on Morrigan. That's because there's gonna be a lot of 1v1s going on, a lot of 1v2s where I can get away with that. As you get into the later stages of the game with Morrigan, you're looking for 2 things. 1, tankier characters. Tankier characters are gonna allow you to get away with playing a little bit more aggressive when you're in your regular Morrigan form. What I mean by that is when you're going in the ultra late stages of the game, you're gonna basically be stealthing in, and then you are going to pop your stun, and then your auto attack in your 2, and then you're gonna be standing presumably in their backlines. Maybe you killed a squishy, and then the whole team is gonna be running at you. Oh, you're out of position now. That happens a lot with Morrigan. So what do you want to do in that case? Well, quickly turn into somebody tanky. In this game, Cthulhu or Hades is a great target to turn into. That way I can become a much tankier target. And then if they come to beat on me for 10 seconds, they're actually beating on a tank. And my team is in a good position because now they just wasted all of their abilities essentially on the solo laner, which is great for you. Secondarily, look for gods that have really good team fight initiation. In this case, Hunbats is the obvious option. I can turn into Hunbats, go into a team fight as Hunbats, use my ultimate, force a bunch of beads. As I start to deform, walk away from the fight. And then now that I've already forced a bunch of beads, forced a bunch of actives, just go back into the fight secondarily in my Morrigan form and go for the actual fight. So it's a little bit less out of position. On the Morrigan decoy, this really isn't that important, but just a little tidbit. You can actually have the decoy tank one shot for you. So if you decoy in, you can actually have it tank one little shot for you, and it'll give you your poly proc. Not a super important mechanic, but every once in a while, that one Phoenix shot is the difference between a creep staying alive long enough or not for backdoor protections. Your decoy will be down. It only takes one shot. It's a little risky, but I use it every once in a while. It's more cheeky than anything else.
Attack right lane. Past this.
Ward coverage is very, very important on Morrigan. Because you are a stealthy character that is squishy, you're going to be going into the back lines, putting yourself out of position. This means that if you have good ward coverage, you'll be able to catch people at their buffs. So think about warding red buff, think about warding on speed buff, back camps, stuff like that. It's going to let you have some better positioning, letting you know what people are. So that way when I stealth and I go looking for kills, I'm going to have a much better vantage point. Now I'm going to switch over my ulti right here to Cthulhu. I didn't end up needing it. That's fine. If you're on controller, I'm sorry, I don't actually know how you do this, but if you're on PC, you don't have to go to this pinwheel every single time that you play Morrigan. So like I want to turn into Cthulhu right here, right? All I have to do is press my ultimate in order to transform here. I didn't actually have to choose Cthulhu on the pinwheel. And that's because you can preset your ultimate. So if you want to preset your ultimate, instead of left clicking on a target like you normally would in order to turn into that target, you right click, and that is going to make it your predetermined target. And so that way now, when I just basically press my ultimate, instead of pressing my ultimate and running around looking for the target I want to turn into, I just press my ultimate and immediately cast it. Bada bing, bada boom. Now I've turned into that target. So click your ulti, right click on the target you want to turn into, and then the next time you just immediately click on your ulti and you'll turn right into them. This is particularly useful when you're turning into tankier characters, because a lot of the times during the backline, you won't have a lot of time before you get CC'd. Morrigan Ultimate is not CC immune. I think a lot of people forget this. When you actually are transforming with Morrigan, you do not have CC immunity. You are in a very small transformation stage that does have an animation, maybe a quarter of a second. So you can try to start your ultimate as Morrigan and then actually get interrupted out of it. So every point, every quarter of a second that you can save by just having a predetermined ulti target that you can transfer into is very, very helpful. So after our Polynomicon, we are just working on some general pen. Karen's coin can actually be a good pen item for Morrigan because Morrigan tends to get some kills and gets that Karen's coin stacking. It makes it a pretty good item for her. Obshard, also a good percent choice for Morrigan. Definitely the safer of the options. But Karen's coin will give you movement speed. We talked about why movement speed is important on Morrigan. So if you can get pen as a fourth item, maybe even fifth item, if your team is winning, I recommend the Karen's coin. If your team is even, or if it's fifth or later, I would just go into the Ob Shard for your penetration. After our Obsidian Shard, we would have been grabbing ourselves a Rod of Tahuti. Rod of Tahuti is pretty self-explanatory here. Rod of Tahuti gives you bonus magical power against targets that are low HP. Morrigan, as a stealthy backliner type character, is going to be killing enemy gods at low HP, It's just gonna help you to get to use your one auto attack polyproc combo in order to put people down. So we would have gotten a Karen's coin here, then we would have sold our Mage's Blessing, gotten ourselves that route of Tahuti. Eventually selling our Shoes of Focus. I would have sold the Shoes of Focus for a Spear of Desolation. That way, with my Spear of Desolation, my Chronos Pendant, and with my Red Pot, I would still have 40% max CDR. And I would get a little bit of Flat Pen, helping me out with squishies at the end of the game. That Flat Pen not really going to help at all with the tanks at the end of the game, but at all stages of the game, Flat Pen going to help you out with squishy characters, guys. And that is the Morrigan guide.